Hey everyone, welcome back to Kubrick Corner with me, Sean Wilson. So we're approaching the end of 2019, which of course thoughts naturally extend now towards 2020 and all the movies that will be coming out. And I'm here to talk about a movie that I saw recently that is actually one of the most anticipated releases of January 2020. The movie is called 1917. It's a World War One drama directed by Sam Mendes, who of course is responsible for the likes of American Beauty, Road to Perdition, and Skyfall. And it is inspired by the story of Sam Mendes' grandfather, who served in World War One. You've no doubt seen a lot of publicity about this, largely owing to the technical aspects of the movie, namely the fact that it was filmed all in one shot. Although, to be more specific, the movie maintains the illusion of being filmed in one shot. What they've actually done is they've weaved together several enormously technically complicated takes and sort of stitched them seamlessly. Think of the likes of Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu's Birdman, which also used a similar technique to this, but nevertheless, the illusion is very, very well maintained in 1917, and it's very much in the service of the story. So, said story: two young British soldiers, played by George Mackay and Dean Charles Chapman from Pride and Game of Thrones, respectively, are tasked with a very, very important and very dangerous mission. They have to get a message to a British battalion that is some way off, that is preparing to engage the Germans, but who are about to be led into a German trap. And these two squaddies have to basically get the message along and prevent what will be a massacre of more than 1,000 British troops. What makes it more personal is that one of the soldiers in this battalion is the brother of one of the central duos. This helps invest the drama with a real sense of personal urgency and danger. As the tagline says, time is the enemy. So it's meant to be unfolding in the illusion of real time, and one can almost imagine like the clock ticking down, albeit unseen in the background. So what you get is these two soldiers basically have to go off through no man's land, through enemy territory, and on to where the British battalion is. And it's very, very interesting the way that the temperature of the landscape changes, the way the temperature of the production design and the lighting and the environment changes to match the emotional temperature of the characters. We go into a booby-trapped German bunker, we come out, we go to a derelict farmhouse where a biplane crashes. There is a really astonishing, kind of almost sepulchral sequence at night, which is almost like Hadean. It's almost like an inferno at points. It's really, really astonishing, and it really does show off the, as always, astonishing work from Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, who, for my money, is the best in the business. I mean, he's worked a lot with the Coen brothers on the likes of Fargo, No Country for Old Men. He shot The Shawshank Redemption. He won an Oscar for Blade Runner 2049. He, of course, famously worked with Sam Mendes on Skyfall and other movies. And Roger Deakins is a genius. I mean, the way that Roger Deakins is continually able to reinvent himself behind the camera while never, ever becoming ostentatious. His visual style always serves the characters, and I think it's really, really impressive. I've no doubt that at least an Oscar nomination is going to come his way for this. And again, what you have is this logistically astonishing series of like tracking shots that, you know, that take us over water, through mud, through barbed wire, you know, through all of these real, like, extraordinary, like, set pieces, like, into vehicles, outside vehicles, cameras, you know, follow people as they enter frame and as they exit frame. All of it sort of done, as I said, in long takes, which are very, very seamlessly put together. There is a cut to black at one point, but it fits the needs of the storyline. And what I've read a few reviews that seem to say that the technical ambition of the film overrides the emotional content. I don't actually agree. I think what this is it's a movie that doesn't have any edits in it, which means that normally with an edit, it's the equivalent of blinking. This is a movie that never blinks and almost dares the audience to blink before it does, which is entirely appropriate for a story in which we come face to face with the most selfless kind of heroism. These two young guys are tasked with this mission. They are not in a position to question it. They have to go and put themselves in harm's way at the risk of not getting the mission done at all, because this is what they've been tasked with. It is an absolutely sort of immersive, unrelenting, again aided by the one-shot technique, depiction of humanity under astonishing duress. What Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins do is they create an immersive environment in which the danger is continual, because the movie plays out in this illusion of it being unbroken. The characters are never allowed to catch their breath, and we, the audience, are not allowed to catch our breath either. So it feels like an emotionally authentic immersion in what the realities of the World War One situation must have been like. There is relatively little time for grief when tragedy strikes. There is very, very little time for reflection as to how the characters have ended up in this situation. What you get is the sense that primarily the characters played by Mackay and Dean Charles Chapman, is they are pawns being moved around a chessboard, as indeed are all the other characters in the movie. I mean, you can see this the way that the choreography has characters entering and exiting frame like very, very elaborately. Everyone involved at different stages of the hierarchy, from the generals down to the lance corporals, are all being manoeuvred by the machinery of modern warfare. Obviously, World War One was the war that is credited with introducing mechanisation into war, and it's a harrowing, overwhelming experience. And the real tragedy of it is the way that the overarching sense of chaos basically saps any sense of individuality or sort of the need for reflection or emotion out of the situation. And again, this is very, very well matched to the idea of this, the illusion of this unbroken tape. Rising and Falling alongside which is Thomas Newman's score. Thomas Newman, I think, is another genius. I've been a huge admirer of Thomas Newman's music for quite a long time now, going back to the days of The Shawshank Redemption and Little Women and Fried Green Tomatoes. Thomas Newman has got a very interesting technique where he's often said to underplay a scene. Thomas Newman very rarely goes for melodrama, and indeed a lot of the music in this is a kind of plays to the kind of sound design elements of Thomas Newman's music. You think of the quieter sections of American Beauty or Skyfall, for instance. But there are moments where the strings rise up in incredibly melodramatic quality, which mirrors his work on the likes of Angels in America, which I think is his masterpiece, or something like Meet Joe Black. And the music kind of surges and ebbs and flows almost like a tide, and it's very, very clever, because again there are no obvious edit points in the movie besides that cut to black, so therefore one can only assume that this must have been a very, very challenging movie to write music to, because normally music is cut to, you get the idea of music being cut to certain edits. There are no such junctures here. So it must have been a fascinating process writing the music for it. The music works very, very well. I've no doubt Thomas Newman will get yet another Oscar. The fact that he's never won an Oscar, despite being nominated, I think, the best part of 14 times, is frankly outrageous. Hopefully this will be his year. I think it's a really impressive film. I think it is emotional. It's not just technical. I think it's a very pragmatic depiction of the selflessness of the characters involved in this hideous conflict. And at the end, there is a credit for Mendes' grandfather, who is of course the embodiment of this kind of heroism. It's, the director's memories of his grandfather are what have inspired this story. There's a raft of scene-stealing supporting performances from Mark Strong, Andrew Scott, Colin Firth, Benedict Cumberbatch, but they're not the main focus. Each of those actors only appear very, very briefly, although they do make an impact. This really belongs to the two young guys, George Mackay and Dean Charles Chapman, who are very good, and they ground it in some kind of incredibly sort of gritty emotional reality that the movie might otherwise be lacking. It might otherwise just become a technical exercise. It's a credit to those two actors that it's not that it does resonate as something very profound and that deserves to be passed on to future generations as a very, very sort of emotionally authentic depiction of the horrors of modern warfare. So it's called 1917. It's out in the UK on the 10th of January 2020, and I can't urge you enough to go and see it. Once you do, drop me a comment here at Kubrick Corner, and I'll see you soon. Bye.